All right, I'm
Cool.
happy to.
Okay, getting started. Just a little late here. Thanks for your patience, everybody.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being patient while we got things kicked off. And I'm excited to share with you some updates on our technical progress on Althea L1. I'm joined here with Justin Kilpatrick, co-founder and our CTO of Hawk Networks. And of course, Hawk Networks is the company that incubated Althea and also projects like Gravity Bridge. And we're also here with Christian, who is lead developer and engineer at Hawk Networks, and of course supporting Althea and the bridge as well. So I'm excited again to share with you all today our progress on the L1, and also those that are joining us as new validators or new integrators on the chain. I'm going to give you a bit of an update on where things are at on that front and how you can get started participating on the chain with us too. So with that said, I'll kick that over to Justin to share a little bit, Justin and Christian to share about what's been going on under the hood, and then once we wrap that up, then I'll kick over to what's going on the validator and side of things as well.
Yeah, so let's see. At this stage, we've been working on some basic dependency and sort of underlying Cosmos SDK updates for Althea L1, and then a lot of the accessory sort of software and other functions that go on top. So a new version of the Althea router software will be out soon with much better support for Althea L1 that's much easier to use. And the goal of this is that we can bootstrap more routers onto Althea L1 more quickly. And this is for the Althea Internet Sales system. And that goes on top of the Althea L1 micropayments module. So just to give everybody a quick refresher on architecture, Althea L1 is a micropayments chain with two separate environments. One is a micropayments focused specialized module, and one is a general purpose EVM. And these are tied together by a function we call liquid infrastructure, which allows devices that are receiving micropayments on the micropayments side of the architecture to direct that revenue to an NFT in the EVM in a way that is permissionless and seamless. So if you receive a 5-cent payment, 5-cent micropayment, that will immediately be available as revenue to the NFT owner. And this is designed to make RWAs more efficient and more effective, as well as more decentralized, so that it's practical to operate many different devices earning real on-chain revenue, whether that be thousands of home internet routers that are paying each other for bandwidth, or thousands of vending machines. So these sorts of payment platform. So this is the payment platform integration that makes Althea L1 really interesting. And that sort of brings us to the stuff that we've been working on right now, which, like I was talking about, is the payment is sort of the clients, so the routers that are going to be using that payment module, as well as the dashboard for everyone using Althea L1. Now, all this development is public. You can find it on either on one of two GitHubs, so github.com althea-net or github.com Althea Foundation. And I'll put those links in the chat for everyone. And you can, let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, the dashboard stuff. So yeah, if you go to althea.link right now, you'll find the management page for the chain, the application that allows you to stake, vote, participate in governance, and manage validation and validators. Soon, that's going to be getting an update, which will allow people to do some basic swapping, bridging in and out, and generally, as the chain starts to go online and governance votes for the chain to be unlocked, that will be sort of time for all of this to come together. So the new version of Althea.link to go live, and for the new version of the Althea router software to be usable, where you can use it on Althea L1 along with liquid infrastructure as sort of the intended micropayments platform structure. And this brings up some of the interesting stuff about how it's different to be a validator on Althea 01 than it is to be a validator on other Cosmos SDK based chains. So Cosmos SDK and Comet BFT is a sort of consensus framework that we're using. It's very high performance, very fast, and is delegated proof of stake. So in this case, you have validators and then delegators where people can delegate their tokens to validators. I'm not going to go too much into the context there just for the sake of time and probably repetition for most people watching this. But the interesting thing about being a validator or a delegator on Althea 1 is a little bit about where your rewards come from. So Althea 1 is a sort of fee generating chain. So there's, as you probably know, there are really two reward models for consensus in blockchain, and Althea 1 combines them in a unique way. You have sort of the Bitcoin method where it's all inflation, where it's some inflation, but supposed to transition to all fees. Then you have more of the most Cosmos SDK chains where it's pretty much all inflation. And then you have Ethereum, where the rewards are coming from, once again, a mix of inflation offset by burning. So there's a mix of these at play in Althea 1 to create what I believe is going to be the ideal micropayments platform. So when routers or RWAs, devices exchanging for off-chain goods on-chain using that micropayments module, those generated fees go directly to the validator that includes the transaction. And this really incentivizes validators to have their system set up well, to prioritize including transactions that are micropayments, and to keep things moving smoothly, to include more transactions. Whereas transactions in the EVM work the same way Ethereum does. They burn the Althea token that is paid for fees, and that offsets some of the inflation that is the other part of the validator's reward system. And by combining these two incentive mechanisms, validators are incentivized to help operate the micropayments platform instead of prioritizing the programmable platform. Because historically, what's been found with platforms like Ethereum and such is that if you give fees for programmable transactions to validators, then network liveness goes down. People start including these really big, bulky program transactions that do large amounts of arbitrage, generally move around the EVM. And these are, while they may be the most economically efficient use of block space, at least for the validator, they are not the most, they're not the best for users of the chain as a whole who want to maintain a responsive and low fee environment where they can send a transaction and get it in quickly. And this is a huge part of the incentive structure that we believe will make Althea 01 the ideal micropayments platform. Yeah, so that gets into a little bit about how being a validator is different. And it's mostly around incentives, transaction inclusion. As far as operating a validator is relatively straightforward, and you can find a guide on the Althea forum if you are interested in doing so. And that brings us to Deborah and her bit of this, where she's talking about the delegation program.
Yeah, thanks for the lead up and good information, Justin. For many of those that have been following along, the foundation just announced and sent out email addresses for those that applied for this round of foundation delegation, letting you know the results of that. You can find out how the foundation is setting up the program or participate in evolving that and changing that within the community at that forum email as well. There's a rubric for scoring according to a set of metrics, and again those metrics of course can evolve over time. And the foundation also, as I understand it, is looking to have quarterly participation. So if you'd like to, learn more about that program, that the forum is going to give you pretty much all you need to get started, or participate or share your thoughts there. And if you are a validator that has participated, you probably have received an email at this point, and are thinking about the next steps on how to get started and to launch your validator. And that's where all that information that Justin just shared with us. And I don't know, Christian, if you have anything to add on where they can find information. Of course, we always welcome folks to come to the Discord, ask questions. You're going to find myself, the folks from Chandra Station who are also involved in validator curation, and then Christian will be there and Justin will be there. We can all help answer your questions and get you on the right track. But yeah, so exciting times as we're sort of moving into kicking the tires and getting things up and working and moving those routers and things like that over to the L1 from Gnosis, where things have been for a while now. So if you did participate, look up for that email. If you haven't participated yet, there's certainly a ongoing discussion and reoccurring evaluation of that too. So I'll turn that over to Justin and Christian if you have any other thoughts about supporting a validator on their journey.
Yeah. So, Christian, do you want to go?
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out, again, the Discord community is great. And we also have some GitHub repositories on the Althea Foundation GitHub that have a lot of documentation on there that should be really helpful to new validators. But I think asking questions in Discord is probably the quickest way to get started if you're unfamiliar, especially with validating on a Cosmos chain. Lots of really helpful people there.
Yeah, and don't forget the Althea forum as well. So it's a great place for longer form discussions and longer form questions about how things work and potential problems you might be having. It would be really great if we could get. So right now there's a basic validator guide there, but there's a lot of tips and tricks and all of that that I think would be great to share on the forum. And maybe I'll try and make a thread later today about that, and people can chime in.
That's actually a great segue to the forum as a whole, and Althea being a governance parameter enabled chain. So as a community member who is staking tokens or participating in the operation of the chain, you have the ability to vote on proposals or to initiate proposals, where you can also find information about initiating proposals and voting in the forum as well. And maybe Justin or Christian, you could give us an overview about the kinds of parameters that are currently governance enabled on the chain.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So governance is really powerful on Althea 1 and can set everything from inflation to the distribution of rewards between. Well, let me see. Okay, yeah. So there's inflation, block speed, fee parameters for what the fee should be in the EVM, fee parameters for what the fee should be in the microtransaction side. Obviously, upgrade parameters for the chain. If the chain software needs to be upgraded, that is something that has to go by a full token vote. So for those that might be less familiar with the Cosmos SDK base, essentially governance for chain upgrades and such controls all aspects of the chain. And unlike a lot of DAOs you see on Ethereum or purely smart contract based DAOs, governance participation is really high on Cosmos SDK chains, and that's because when you delegate to a validator, that validator can vote on your behalf if you do not show up and vote yourself. Which means that for any given proposal, you'll typically get 70 or 80% of all the tokens on the chain, or all the staked tokens, voting, which is really great and means that a lot of decisions can and are turned entirely over to the community. Actually, I think that's a bit of an understatement. All decisions ultimately come down to the community and validator vote because because of that higher participation rate that ensures that things don't just get deadlocked for failing to meet a quorum forever. And I personally think this is a really great design aspect, and also highlights the importance of validators and who they are, understanding who these validators are and how they might vote on proposals, and whether or not they vote at all is very important if you're considering delegating your Althea token, because they are more than just running the infrastructure of the chain. They are also representing you when it comes to chain voting, unless you, of course, show up and vote on proposals yourself, which I really suggest that you do. The governance period on Althea L1 is 3 days right now, which is long enough for people to hear about proposals and to get notifications. But of course, governance can also choose to increase the governance proposal, as well as pretty much any other aspect of voting, if they so choose.
Yeah, I just wanted to call out that whenever we're trying to add new features to any Cosmos SDK application, it's really important to consider like giving the community more parameters to tweak where relevant. And we've even done some work to connect the Cosmos SDK based governance to the deepen DEX governance, so that things get forwarded automatically to the EVM and configure the smart contracts upon the proposal passing and executing. So just really trying to increase the agency of the governance voters and what they can do on chain uh, at every step of development.
Yeah, and there's also extra work that we've done to make those proposals really clear. So, instead of having a DEX proposal with like a byte payload that you have to encode that says what it's going to do to the deep index, we have a fee change proposal, which actually does all the encoding for you and makes it easy for the layman to submit these sorts of proposals rather than requiring deep expertise in the EVM architecture of the DEX for people to make changes. And we believe that that's a very important part of the Althea L1 culture and community that we're trying to foster and see, is that decisions and governance especially should not be cloaked in sort of technical expertise requirements. It should be open to anyone to participate in and to provide their opinion and make their voice heard on what they believe is best, regardless of technical background or not. That obviously does not actually decide if the decision is a good idea or not.
So one thing I think it might be great to touch on too is, so let's say I want to build an application with the Althea L1 or the EVM or the Deep Index, or there's something interesting that I want to integrate with an Althea L1. And this question is a bit directed toward you, Christian, because I know you've got a lot of great material on the YouTube. How do people get started? I mean, where should they go to learn about integrating on Althea L1, and if they want to build applications, learn a little bit more, even get started with that. And I would just like to shout out that Christian's done a number of great YouTube here on the Althea YouTube about the kind of chain integrations and things like that too. But I think it'd be good just to kind of bring up a little bit of a 101 about getting started with building.
Yeah, great question. So we do have that video on using Althea.js, which is a JavaScript library that can be used to execute transactions on Althea L1. So if you're working on a website that needs to be blockchain enabled, any sort of dApp that's going to use Althea L1, that's a great place to go and use that. We also have a Rust-based ecosystem to work with Althea L1, because that's how we write all our integration tests. And so Deep Space is a great client library for using Rust to interact with the blockchain, and that's more lower level, but it's still fundamentally just making queries and interacting with the chain via transactions. And so everything is based off of protobuf. So if you're working in a language that has a protobuf implementation. You'll be able to generate transactions for the Althea L1 blockchain and submit them. So if you're working on something like a vending machine or a car charger or something else that needs to make transactions on Althea L1, you'll likely be using the MicroTX transaction, or it's considered a message, but those get packaged into a transaction. So yeah, you can really any sort of application that you're going to be developing, or any sort of devices that you're going to be making chain enabled. They just need to be able to generate transactions using one of the libraries that we have, Althea.js, or Deep Space, our Rust-based system, or you can just generate everything that you need in your language of choice using protobuf and connect to a Althea L1 endpoint that would broadcast those transactions. And then that's how you would make any sort of DApp or system that interacts with the chain. And so if you want to find out more about that, there's obviously that YouTube video, and there's also the Althea Foundation GitHub that has all of the definitions, all the source code, everything, and documentation on how it's used. And we'd love to hear from you on the Althea forum or the Althea Discord as well if you have any questions.
And Justin, could you touch a little bit about, I know we have the Althea L1 code in the latest iteration of the router firmware. What if somebody wanted to grab some, routers or flash their own supported routers with the firmware and start kind of playing around with that? Is that available now, soon? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the routers and the software are available now. So if you go and you check out the repository on the AltheaNet GitHub, you can find firmware images, the base software itself, sort of all the constituent parts, and dig into the automated tests where it runs on Althea L1 there. And once the community votes to unlock Althea L1 for general operation, you'll be able to hook up your Althea routers that same day. There's just an option in the dashboard. You switch the dropdown from Gnosis chain to Althea L1, and that's that. Right now, if you try that, that won't work because the chain's locked, but the software is all there. And we support a wide variety of different OpenWRT hardware, and actually adding support for a new OpenWRT compatible device only takes about 30 45 minutes maybe if you have your hands on it. Most of the time it's actually building the firmware in the first place. So really you can get Althea running on just about anything from an old PC to a old Wi-Fi router.
Or new ones.
Not to forget a Raspberry Pi. Well, yeah, I mean, hardware you have around, and there's brand new, really, so there's really nice stuff that we support as well. It's funny being in this, doing this for a few years, you essentially have a pretty good impression of what is the best price per performance and what's the best performance router that you can buy at any given time. I think right now, if somebody's buying a router and they want to use Althea on it, go to Amazon and look for the Dynalink WRX-36. It's a really nice Wi-Fi router, and it's a great deal too. And that is the best bang for your buck in Wi-Fi routers available right now, period. So you just can't get any better for the price. And you really can't get that much better even for a much higher price. So in my opinion, it's not worth getting anything else. So yeah, go there, grab one of those, and you can flash it with Althea in probably an hour or two. Once you read through the documentation and sort of take a look at how it all works.
Yeah, and again, just for those folks that might be joining us a little bit later, Discord's going to be the best place if you grab, let's say you grab a Dynalink, you're working on getting that flash, you have some questions, Discord's going to be the place to get started with that journey, or to ask questions along your way. But certainly experimentation is encouraged, and as I think fellow tinkers at heart. I think we all have a lot of us have been exploring, flashing our own routers on firmware for many, many years. And, flashing Althea on a router is similar to what putting DDWRT or Tomato for those folks that have been around in the industry for a minute or in the hobbyist world of that. One other thing I wanted to make sure people know about is that we do have 4G, 5G compatible core. So people can not only build networks in, fixed wireless or, cabled networks. They can, with Althea Stack, you can also build in 4G and 5G. If you want to talk a little bit about that, Justin, how would someone get started with that?
Yeah, so the key LTE sort of router stack, for that, you can look on the Hawk Networks website, or I think there's a link on the Althea website too, and order a kit to get started. So this comes with with an embedded 4G, 5G sort of cell tower core installed onto a consumer router, or if you're willing to pay a little bit more, a proper commercial enterprise grade PC. And it also comes with a basic little cell tower kit. So what's really cool is over the past couple of years, what's called CBRS spectrum has become available, and that allows anybody to set up a sort of small scale, low power cell tower for a very reasonable cost. And it's very cool stuff to play around with. And also it's very impressive to have a full cell tower in this sort of router footprint, equivalent commercial, sort of commercial grade software and hardware. It can easily be tens of thousands of dollars. And here you can even go up to for just a few $1,000s and make yourself something that is fun to experiment with. And for just a little bit more than that, you can move into something production ready if you are interested in providing cellular home internet or even cellular direct to cell service on a small scale. We've done something similar up in the Arctic Circle where they're using our core. I'm afraid I cannot pronounce the name of the city.
I think it's
but there's a blog post about it.
Yeah, I think it's Ulahaktak, but I also could be mispronouncing that as well. But it's right up there with Santa and his elves. We are providing the kind of some of the underlying technology behind that deployment there, which has a community of I think about 400 people. That it is backhauled through a mix of I think through Starlink's satellites, and then the cellular connectivity stack to the home is that core along with of course just regular handsets.
Yeah, so there's a lot of possibilities. The LTE is a little bit more bespoke, and I would suggest you reach out to Hawk Networks, which is why I'm suggesting buying kits or generally working with us, because it is a little bit beyond basic tinkering. Whereas setting up a quick Althea network with your own home flashed routers is something people with moderate technical expertise can do with no problem.
Absolutely. And one of the things too that Hawk can help with is some of the license spectrum if you want to move into a more commercial type of application. CBRS is great for many use cases, but you might want to have the reliability of licensed, and that's something that Hawk just recently announced the partnership with Globalstar to have easier access to a licensed spectrum called Band 53. So definitely hawknetworks.net and reach out to us over there and get started if you're looking to go down that journey. But I think there's all kinds of examples of ways to get started building infrastructure and networks with whatever technology is going to be the right fit for your use case.
Cool. So I think questions now, right?
Yeah, I have questions. I mentioned here if anybody has a question, post it here or Discord. If we have any come in, happy to jump in with that. Maybe did we touch on liquid infrastructure at all? That might be that's kind of another building block that we didn't really talk about here yet, have we?
Well, I mean, we talked about liquid infrastructure some on the Althea L1 side and more about the account management side, but not beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to kind of combine the stacks. I think you can find more about the other thing too is that if folks are looking to sort of build on the network side, take a look at docs.althea.net. That's going to have everything from, some use cases, flashing firmware. It's going to have a bit about liquid infrastructure. It's going to help you understand how the blockchain works. So there's a lot of just kind of one-on-one articles over there at docs.althea.net. And it's docs.althea.net. That's also a good place to kind of do a little bit of research on how all the components work and fit together. One thing I think, might be good to close out, if we, as we're thinking about any last minute questions or folks might want to think about asking them, is we had a really kind of a great, hackathon about a year ago, and there was a couple of really interesting projects. I think for me, the decentralized PLMN, and then the token for charging stations. Maybe we could talk a little bit about those and how they use the stack to close it out.
Yeah, so I mean, I think charging stations are a great example, because what liquid infrastructure allows is, let's say, for example, you have a electric charger, and you want this to accept on-chain payments from people, but you don't actually want to hold an individual private key for the charger. You're maybe going to have a dozen, 100 of these, and keeping their earnings secure is important. So what liquid infrastructure allows you to do is to tokenize all of these wallets. So you turn them all into an NFT representation of their earnings, which you go put in a nice, safe hardware wallet. After that, somebody comes up, they plug in, and they have their own application connect with your charger and start to pay it as it uses. They could pay all at once, or they could stream payments in very small amounts, let's say $1 at a time, as they charge their car. And this is great because it lets people pay for what they use. And it also allows for the funds to be immediately held by the NFT in the owner's wallet. So there's no extra private keys to manage. Those security concerns go away. And you can start to use the revenues from these chargers in DeFi. So because the revenue is being collected into the liquid infrastructure NFT, which is itself a smart contract, you could do something like write yourself another smart contract that aggregates the revenue from 500 NFTs. You could write a smart contract that would split the revenue into different accounts so that you have an account for the underlying electricity costs that's just ready to go and send directly to pay that bill. So these sorts of automated splitting systems, all the extra automation that you can easily write, is really where the power of combining real world payments with sort of EVM contract flexibility comes in, because a lot of existing blockchain technology, a lot of the stuff you see with DEXs, a lot of the stuff that's been developed on Ethereum is really great and stupendously flexible. But what it needs is an asset that's actually generating real revenue, something that's out in the real world, where people are actually buying something of value, versus working with different tokens and sort of more abstract financial interest, rather than making funds directly off of selling a candy bar, selling electricity, selling bandwidth, and then being able to apply all this advanced technology that's been written for the EVM environment to those more mundane revenue streams. So this is where I think Althea 1 is really innovative and interesting, and lets you use all this really cool technology developed over the past several years on the sort of mundane purchases and mundane businesses that run the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're really starting to see these sorts of applications on the enterprise side as well, too. So that these kind of core primitives and building blocks allow enterprises to meet some of their pain points in, how they're thinking about coordinating payments between many different entities, which I think is pretty exciting. Christian, did you have anything to add on some of the projects you've been looking, seeing kind of builds, or that the previous hackathon projects?
Nothing exactly, but I just think that there's a lot of potential here for people to write smart contracts or leverage ones that already exist and are open and public, and to kind of combine things with the liquid infrastructure foundation that we've set up, to kind of bridge the Cosmos side to the Ethereum side of the chain and enable more flexibility. So can't wait to see what people wind up doing on Althea L1 as we approach the unlock period, and just want to make myself available again if you have any questions. I've been working on this stuff a lot, kind of the whole chain experience, and then also doing some development on the libraries to interact with the chain. So yeah, we have a lot of resources available for builders or validators who want to participate. I think there's a lot of exciting events that are going to be coming up soon.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a great way to close things out. If Justin, do you have any final words to to end the call with? And I think on my side, like I said, I just encourage everyone to join our Discord or our Twitter if you're not a part of that already, and stay on top of these community calls that we have on a fairly regular basis. Typically, they're on Friday, but sometimes they're different days as well. So stay in touch, and then feel free, as you get started on your Althea journey, to jump into Discord and participate on the building, validating, or if you're on the community side of things, we have Althea chapters, and lots of ways to engage in content and building the vision of decentralized utilities and infrastructure. And with that, I'll head it over to Justin to close us out.
Yeah, so I think we talked about a lot of great and interesting stuff here. And the primary, I think the things you really highlight is that Althea 1 is a platform to sort of combine the innovation that we've seen in blockchain and specifically sort of EVM, DeFi technologies with more mundane, real world assets. So, something as simple as selling bandwidth or a candy bar, etc. And I think there's a huge amount of opportunity there, and I'm really excited to see how people use it. And we're really interested to hear from you if you have an idea to build something on Althea L1, or are just interested in playing around with what already exists.
Cool. All right. Till next time, everyone. Thanks so much for being part. Bye-bye.